I don't know why it feels like I'm holding an apple. It's really weird. Anyway, video game remakes are a massive trend these days, especially with Sony turning games into remakes and remasters that didn't really need them in the first place. Like this year alone, we got quite a few game releases that were literally just remakes. 2024 is just literally looking up to be the year of remakes. Like seriously. In this video, I really want to talk about why I think there are so many video game remakes being released nowadays. So sit back, relax and enjoy this video. Like and subscribe if you do. And let's get right into this. So firstly, I want to talk about where did video game remakes originate from initially. And it dates back all the way to the 80s when games like Pac-Man were often re-released on different home gaming platforms. We also had remakes of Super Nintendo such as Super Mario All-Stars, which is considered to be the first major remake of a game. Then we move on to the late 90s and early 2000s with the introduction of 3D graphics and games being remade in that style. Like games such as the original Resident Evil 1 that was remade in 3D graphics in early 2002, and several games such as Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 3 that were being remade for Nintendo DS. Fast forwarding to today, video game remakes are a massive trend in the gaming industry these days. And I would say this goes back a few years when Capcom started doing remakes of the old Resident Evil games such as Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. Even before that, we had the Final Fantasy 7 remake announced and in development. Now these games really redefine what the term remake actually means, which is completely overhauling the technology, the visuals and the design of the game whilst keeping the vibes of the original intact. It's sort of like renovating and repainting a house. You know it's the same house, but it still looks fresh and new. Now after looking over the success of these remakes, companies jumped on the first opportunity to remake their old classic games as well. Now the number one reason as to why I think companies would do this is because remakes would require much less investment and resources to develop than a fully new game. Which is why Capcom was able to pump out the Resident Evil remakes a lot quicker than other devs and find lots of success from those. Now the Final Fantasy 7 remake is an exception to that rule since it's a completely brand new AAA game built from the ground up. And also because the Resident Evil games are much shorter in length than a freaking JRPG. God, those are freaking massive, man. Now the second reason as to why I would believe that remakes are popular nowadays is that not only does it already hook in people who are fans of the original games, but it also brings in a new generation of gamers who didn't really play or grew up with these games in the first place. Which could be because the older games haven't really aged that well. Like man, the tank controls of the early Resident Evil games are so freaking annoying. So it basically gives these new players a visually upgraded version of the game packaged with new mechanics that are more synonymous with games nowadays. So companies would make a lot of money and success because not only do they have the audience of people who like the original game who would buy the remake in a heartbeat, but it would also garner a lot of attention from the casual gamers. It also gives new set of players incentives to go check out the original game, which is what I wanted to do after playing through Final Fantasy 7 Remake. I really want to play the original Final Fantasy 7 someday. Another reason as to why remakes are popular these days is that it could breathe new life into game franchises that have been dead for a while now, like the Silent Hill series for example. Since the new and upcoming remake of Silent Hill 2 would revive the series temporarily, if not permanently. Now, we don't know if the game will be well received or generally disliked by the community, but at least there'll be more discourse around the game, thus keeping the franchise relevant. Now, this is all well and good for everyone, but I also want to talk about the downsides of remakes and how it affects the industry. Now, the major downside of remakes is that it really restricts game developers from creating completely new games, as a lot of time, resources and manpower that would have been spent creating a completely new and original IP would otherwise be spent making a remake from the ground up. Now this doesn't really affect companies who know how to manage their resources and talent well. Like look at Atlas for example, who just released Persona 3 Remake this year and also gonna be releasing their brand new IP Metaphor pretty soon. But if companies solely focus on creating remakes, it would really limit their creativity and they'll be restricted to make the game the way the original was intended. And they would also add gameplay mechanics and formulas of already tried and tested games. Like look at Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth for example. There was really no reason to turn it into an open world game. Or worse, add side content that resembles a modern Ubisoft game. They really only added these features because that's what companies believe sells nowadays. It just kills all uniqueness and creativity and also affects the charm and feel of the original game quite a bit. Companies can also milk the crap out of a remake, like how Square Enix is doing with Final Fantasy 7. Like it's really quite a shame that the most anticipated games nowadays are just remakes or sequels of already existing games. And it really proves my point that companies are not willing to take risks anymore or do something new. They just want to do remakes. And I get that it's fair since companies want to make money too, but it has really robbed the AAA gaming industry of creativity and originality. Like just look at Sony. The PS5 has the least amount of new and original games compared to the consoles that came before it. I mean, most games on the PS5 are just remakes or re-releases of already existing games. And most of these games didn't really need to be remastered or remade again, since they still hold up pretty well graphically. Like seriously, it's been over 4 years since the PS5 launched, and we are almost halfway through the console's life cycle, and there still aren't many notable games on that console, which really sucks. Like of course there's other reasons why this is happening as well, like games taking much longer to make these days than before, but I do believe video game remakes are a factor in this too. Which is why it's better to play indie games if you want to look for something new, innovative and original, as AAA games don't really have nothing much to offer in terms of uniqueness or originality anymore, which is really sad. That being said, I'm not completely against the idea of remakes. It's quite cool and it introduces a classic game to a newer audience. But I just don't want to play remakes of existing games. I want original games too. That's really all that I wanted to talk about in this video. I really didn't expect it to turn into a full-blown rant as to why the gaming industry is dying. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did. And I'm trying to really experiment with new types of videos, like this relaxed face cam video. And I also really just wanted to show off my sexy face. Please subscribe to my OnlyFans if you want to see more of me. But jokes aside, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And please stick around for whatever I do next in this channel. Anyway, I gotta go and play some video games now. See ya guys.